Good afternoon.
Hi all, sorry. It's one thing after the other. All right. We were just finishing up a COVID-19 meeting. So, all righty, are we ready to go? Everyone here? Who all do we have? Oh, sweet beans. All righty. Well, let me see if I can. I'll just start off. I'm Nikki Damani. I'm the Director of Student Life at Bakersfield College. I recognize a lot of faces, and then, yeah, so I think a majority of you have either been a part of this presentation or a similar one in the past. So maybe a lot of it is going to be review, or if you have any other questions, just let me know at any time and we can do that. And I will also share my screen if I can do that one day. Everybody have a good winter break? Yeah, that's the one thing bad about Zoom is you can't hear anybody and they're all, I bet you run through this with your students all the time in your classes. Like, are you listening to me? All right, don't forget to fill out the attendance form. I believe we are 133 on there so that you get some credit for here. But without ado, we will go on. Everyone can see this. This is the academic integrity workshop, right? Yes, beautiful. All right. I do so many of them. Sometimes I go back. I'm like, which one's this one? So we talk about academic integrity and what it is how it's handled in those type of lovely situations. So we'll go through 6 different topics for it. Before I forget, I will also upload this presentation so that you can have it. It's in the chat window. So if you need to take notes or want to plagiarize anything in here, you're more than welcome to do that as well. All right. So we're going to do scenarios, and there are about 10 of us in here. So this first scenario, we'll just talk about it as a general group, and then we'll go into smaller groups for it for our time. So you're not always just listening to me. I know how much you are so excited to listen to me all the time. But last year, Dave wrote an excellent paper for his marketing course. This year, he realizes that with a bunch of tweaks and edits, it could be used for his course this semester. Is it an academic integrity infraction to submit this paper with enhancements? What do you think? So you can either jot into the chats or you can unmute yourself and give us some thoughts.
I think there is a risk of self-plagiarism if you're just paste and copy a paper that you already wrote without mentioning that it was already part of another paper.
Okay, thanks, Gian. So he's saying self-plagiarism. How do we explain what self-plagiarism is to students? Because they're like, how can I plagiarize my own self? I'm just saying it myself. Anyone have thoughts? Or otherwise, what I like to say is like common verbiage that we always use, like now of course I can't think of any. Statements that we use on a just like a random time, like shut the front door, or that was probably not the best example, but it's the first one that came to my mind because it just had that situation occur.
Well,
like you can't eat your cake, or you can't have a slice of cake and eat it too. That, those phrases that everyone says, but you really don't know who to quote it for. So how would you explain that?
If you already ate your slice of pizza, you cannot eat it again because it's already gone. So if you do this, basically you're passing out for new material, something that you recently wrote, but it's not new because it's material that you already wrote in the past. So you're basically presenting something that your reader is going to believe is your new research, and is taking for new material something that actually was already done in the past.
Yeah, that's kind of how I share with students. It's like, it's already been submitted, you've already used it. You have a one-time kind of a situation with things. Once it's been graded, it's become, I always tell them, like, once you submit an assignment or a paper into a faculty member, you've quote unquote published it to that faculty member. And that's how you kind of have to review it and look for it moving forward, so that when you do it again, you have to inform the new faculty member, hey, I wrote this paper before. Sometimes I even tell them the best thing is to attach the old paper to the new paper so the faculty member can see the differences that you've done. Because sometimes a lot of faculty will say, like, yeah, if you used a paper in the past or you're retaking the same course, to go ahead and do that, but let me know what your enhancements are for them. All right. So let's talk about the culture of academic integrity.
Hey, Nikki, before we
Yeah.
move on, this is Julie.
Sure.
So can they reference themselves? Like their previous paper? I mean,
They-
or
they
I guess
could.
like you s-
Yeah, if they're, I would say, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it's happened, where they could, put documentation and works cited and cite their old paper and then cite themselves in the new paper. But more times than not, what I see is students just reuse the same paper with the faculty member's acknowledgement. So if they want, they could put like Damania 2014 if they want to in their paper and cite it in their bibliographies or whatever. That could be done too.
So I guess as instructors, that phrase self-plagiarism is something that we should use to warn them ahead of time.
Yeah. And I don't see anybody in communication here, but I do get quite a bit communication, especially with speeches. So if you have speeches in there, sometimes students will reuse a speech that they've used before, not realizing that that's also plagiarism for it. Once again, how I normally say is, like, once you've submitted in a work, you've published the work. And that's the best way I've learned how to explain to students on that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So here we have the values of academic integrity. And of course, now I have Paul Beckworth, who's my counterpart here. He's texting me being like, where's the link that I need? So let me just send that to him real quick. Okay, sorry about that. So that's there. According to the International Center of Academic Integrity, there are 6 components to the fundamentals of academic integrity for it. And just to kind of give you a snapshot of what those are, this is kind of what the 6 is and how they define it. Some examples, I'm sure we could all come up with various different examples of academic integrity, but basically I'm going to break it down into 6 different components. The first one is the main one that we consider as a plagiarism, where they're representing other people's thoughts and reusing it for themselves without citing them, without engaging the original author's idea. A lot of times I'll explain to students that this is literally as if you're stealing something from them, because this is a thought that they came up with, they published. You want to give credit for where credit is due. I tell a lot of students many times, like, hey, giving credit to somebody else shows that you're researching certain topics and that you're being able to pull different topics together and formulate your own idea, which is a stronger base than just copying and pasting from someone else. Next one is cheating. As you know, that's mainly like on quizzes or tests or anything in that matter. That will copy from one or the other. One of the best, there's Mr. Beckworth. One of the best things that I've learned from faculty is that when you're giving quizzes, you're giving 2 different types of quizzes, A's and B quizzes, so that you definitely know if a student is cheating, because they have the answers of the question from a different quiz or whatnot. On there, being online has really helped in that matter about cheating, because they can't copy each other on that same motion, but we have been known to see students texting each other or going on to certain, what do you call, chat groups or anything to discuss questions while the quiz or whatnot is already happening or in progress. That's what we call, the next part of it is assisting. When they're assisting, a lot of times students are thinking, I'm just helping them out like with the paper. I didn't realize that I was actually doing it for them. So making sure that they understand that how assisting can lead to plagiarism and academic integrity. Fabrication, haven't seen this a lot, but it does happen where they take some data and exaggerate it out. I knew this dissertation while I was going to grad school that they were taking a lot of different sources and just randomly adding it into their, what's it called, theoretical framework and their history, just because they needed so many sources to cite. And so they just randomly placed it in there. A faculty was like, I don't remember reading this in one article, and found out that that was happening. So it's fabrication. Tampering, you know, you're tampering with the witness, you're tampering with your altercation, with your things. Being our students being very tech savvy, they have learned how to copy and paste, as well as take PDFs and move things around, and copy signatures that from other people and place it on your signatures. So just be a little bit more mindful of what that is. How I always like to say, if you leave open-ended responses for a lot of things, you'll get more thought from the student than just a quick kind of a true or false or administration. So these are the different types of personalities, I say, that I've seen that come through academic integrity component. Once again, you can review this on your leisurely time. But there's a lot of different things, anything from like, oh, I didn't realize that was academic integrity, to like, yeah, I knew it was, but you know, I thought if I did it this way, it wouldn't matter. We had a student last semester that plagiarized 4 times in one class. And on the 5th time, I finally had to come in and be like, why are you? Well, I just thought maybe I was running out of time that she wouldn't catch it. And I'm like, she's caught you 4 other times. What makes you think she wouldn't catch you again? Like on the flip side, she's probably making sure you're not. Like, I'm not sure what. So laziness is a lot of the end roll time management for our students for it. So as we always say, it's a news flash. Students cheat more than we think or we expect from our students to be cheating. So how we look at academic integrity, especially on the first instance, and I'd like to, if you don't know, Professor Paul Beckworth in history assists and really helps and kind of leads the academic integrity world in my office for us. And so a lot of times we know that there are a lot of students when we're working with them that just don't know what plagiarism is or how it's working for them. A lot of times they haven't been taught the appropriate way, or many times they've learned these behaviors in their high school and they think they can carry it on into the higher education realm. So more times than not, the first infraction, we use it as a learning opportunity for them. Our recidivism rate for academic integrity is not that high because the first time we do have them go through quite a bit of legwork to make sure that they understand what academic integrity is, that they don't want to go through it again. What forms do we do as the take-in? So this was just like personal read for you. What is our culture of academic integrity? As I was saying, it's like it's part of our learning opportunity. We take the first behavior as a learning opportunity for the student. We work with them. We meet with the student about 2 to 3 times per academic integrity infraction so that we know whether it's either through our office, the Writing Center, or one of our Students of Concerns interns. We try to really make sure that the student is placed on a successful path forward. So here's our second scenario for this. You discovered that a student's essay had a few verbatim sections from articles found on several internet sources. Student was seriously ill and behind on our coursework and expressed remorse. What do you think would be a fair sanction? A 0 on assignment, reprimand, warning, final mark reduced by so many percentage, reprimand, warning, or it's in extenuating circumstances, thus only a warning. So let's just say in our current environment, the students caught COVID or had a COVID breakout. What would you think would be the your call for the students? See, Professor Bond put 3. Two, Gian. If it's the first offense, let's say this is the first offense. David said 3, 1. Oh, Kurt's like, I'm hardcore. Okay. Julie also hardcore, you know, and Kelly as well. Okay.
In fairness, I do drop a few grades here and there, so
Yeah.
there's some forgiveness in other ways.
And there are faculty that do that they'll like drop the lowest score or they'll curve at the end or something. And that, you know, it's considered for us on our side, we don't work on the grade. So the grade is up to the faculty. How we look at it is we adjudicate it according to the materials that are submitted and the statement that the student provides us if they meet with us. More times than not, we'll come back with either a positive or a charged or not charged infraction, meaning that, yeah, there was some form of infraction or there was not a form, and we relay that back to the faculty member, then the faculty member has that decision. More times than not, if it's a minor situation, first time offense, we typically advise the 1, where they give a 0 on the assignment, and then we give them a written warning for it. More times than not, the minor assignments don't affect the grade that much, but then once again, it's to the faculty members thing. If by any chance we do find that it was like a severe circumstance or illness or something like that, we might recommend a 3, where it's just a verbal warning. But more times than not, students need to see that there is some type of repercussion that is happening from their infraction. So while it may be harsh, sometimes a 0 on the assignment for plagiarism would be there. The one other thing I forgot to mention is we also look at the faculty member's syllabus if they have the academic integrity clause in their syllabus to make sure that the student was made aware. I can tell you there are quite a few faculty members that still do not have an academic integrity clause or do not cover academic integrity at the beginning of their class. And in that time, then we do probably go towards a 3 versus a 2 or a 1. Okay, any questions? All right, so let's consider our role in there. So we need to keep ourselves well informed through the professional development and workshops of academic integrity and how that is. For it, we need to model academic integrity. It's monkey see, monkey do kind of a thing. If students are noticing, like on your PowerPoint presentations or on the papers you're providing them, that you're not citing your sources, they sometimes think, oh, well, if my professor didn't cite it, I didn't need to cite it. That's also including PowerPoints, handouts, worksheets, anything in that matter. Once again, it's the culture that you're building in your site. That's kind of why that first component I was referencing, I placed in footnotes on my sliders to make sure that you know that I'm pulling this from other areas, versus the one graph where it was like, here are all the different types. That was something that I created. So to give you that kind of component of it for it, and that, you know, especially if it's video or texting or messages or anything like that, make sure you're citing your own self for it. Responding to alleged infractions, you know, making sure you're understanding that students will plagiarize, they will cheat. It's not the end of the world. And to allow the room for them to understand and to learn from it. I know that's hard to sometimes take that in consideration because we work so hard to make sure that our tests or quizzes or essays are great. But then for a student to come back and just plagiarize, it's such like a, oh, I told you about this. We talked about plagiarism. Like, why can't you get it? Especially on first-time offenses, it really just, sometimes it can make or break a student in their academic journey, especially right now when a lot of students aren't that feeble mind, like, I'm not ready for an online environment, or I can't study on online environment. Yeah, you can. It's just they try to find every barrier that's there. One thing I can always suggest, that if a student has plagiarized or anything in that matter, you can always email our office and we will let you know if that student has been talked to before about plagiarism or what type of situation that was. So that when you're making your decision, you can be a little bit more well-informed in that, like, this was a first-time offense, or if it was a, you know, maybe it was a situation that has already been talked to about with the students. We have the academic integrity reporting form. So it's best when you do submit a report to us that you'd use this form. And I'm going to go to the form, maybe. Can you see the form, or is it still on the PowerPoint? You can see the form? Okay.
Yes, the Inside BC website.
Okay, so this one right here. So once you're in there, you can fill it out to the best of your ability for it. If you don't have any information on it, you could put like none is provided. It just helps Paul and myself to help to see if the student has been attending your class or has not, what the grade evaluation is. And especially if it's like, a lot of times like, this is worth 50% of the student's grade. So then we'll take that into consideration to see what needs to happen, why the student made the decision that they made their decision in. The other component you could talk about as well is the starfish. You can submit a starfish for academic integrity to us, but that does not go through our adjudication process. It's more of a FYI. Hey, Nikki, I caught this student. Thanks. We don't follow up with the student. We do not give a warning to the student. It's just the faculty member telling us that, hey, I found this student plagiarizing, didn't do much with it, talked to the student, had the student redo the assignment or whatever is needed for it. I highly recommend, if you are going to reduce marks or give the student a 0, to fill out the academic integrity reporting form. This kind of helps you in case the student becomes aggressive. We have a track of it then saying that the student does it. The academic integrity form and through our process gives the student their Fifth Amendment right of due process. When you just do a starfish alert and mark them a 0, we have not given our student their due process for their Fifth Amendment to appeal it. In which then if they were to ever take us to court or anything like that, we would not have a strong hand in that situation. So the best thing if you are to give a 0 or a mark down on a grade, especially if it's a high level grade or a quiz or a test, the reporting form is your best option. Okay. Any questions on that so far? Some helpful notes of when you're talking to the student of how to help them understand, but more importantly, like what your responsibility is for it. And that's what I'm saying is like, we are in community college situation. We don't know where the student is coming from, how much education they've had, what their previous experience is. So if you're not comfortable having those conversations with the students, that's where we can really help and step in into helping with that. But at the end of the day, it is your decision of whether or not that student is held to that liable standpoint for it. You can consider different potential consequences. A lot of times I'll even suggest for faculty members, especially for tests or quizzes, especially if they're noticing like two students are similar answers, is to give them a retake test. I will tell you right now, if you're one of the faculty members that, you know, has a test and you use that same test year after year after year, you can definitely assume that somebody has reviewed the answers from the previous year. Just automatically assume that. That's why it's important to make sure that you're differentiating your tests and quizzes from year to year, semester to semester, class to class. Unfortunately, that is a lot more work on our point, but that will definitely help in the to ensuring that our students are held to academic standards. All right, let's go into scenario 3. And that is Dave has some class, same class and instructor as Joan does, but it is an earlier class. Dave has been struggling with the class and is unsure if he's successfully passing. Joan was able to take photos of the final exam on her cell phone and text the exam to Dave 3 hours before the scheduled time to take his test. With a guilty conscience, Dave reports this to you. What do you do? What do you think should happen? And I'm going to spare Kurt and tell him the guillotine is not an option. Although there are many times I tell Paul, just send him to the guillotine. This has never happened in your classes, really?
Both zeros?
Well,
I'm sure it's happened, but we're not aware of it. Wow.
report Jones, spare Dave coming with an alternative assignment since he had time with it. Okay, so poor Jones getting thrown under the bus. Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay. So in this situation, this is actually a real situation that has occurred. You know, unfortunately, it's not only one time; it's multiple times situation. More times than not, it's not the person who. It's not Dave's position that comes with a guilty conscience. It's more Jones' position that comes with a guilty conscience. In any case, either case, anyway, I would always recommend that the same penalty harshment goes to both people at the same time. Both would be submitted into academic integrity reporting, and both would need to do the same type of situation. Again, keeping them once again on the same playing levels for the student. Because once again, when we're looking at it at a holistic higher level, it's always easy to say that we did it across the board versus, oh, for this situation, we did it this way. In this situation, we did it this way. If you had two scenarios, scenario threes of two different students, so 4 students, and you gave 0 to one student on this one, but on this one, you liked the student or perceived you may like this student better, so you gave them a lower marking on it, or you gave them different things. So you're looking, remember, we're looking at a holistic higher level. So I would always say across the board, you give it the same sanctioning, whatever that sanctioning is, and then you keep that practice throughout your time. And that'll make it more consistent with you. And then more times than not, when you're consistent like that, students talk to other students and they'll be like, oh no, you don't want to do that. There's no wiggle room. They may be really nice in the classroom, but there's no wiggle room with that grade. You know, think about it in that way. But if this came to us, we would recommend that both students be sanctioned with a 0 for it. I would be hard pressed to believe to give the student an alternative exam. Because more times than not, a lot of faculty members will drop a low test score or they will provide extra credit for it. Tests for me tend to be like the cornerstones for classes. So how much I tease Kurt for being a hard person, I'm actually pretty strict when it comes to this. And once again, this is something we don't tell the students. Once again, it is your decision as the faculty member of the class what you do. At the end of the day, you could totally disregard what Paul and I give you as a remediation for it. But more times than not, we tend to lean on the more stricter part, because at the end of the day, if we're more strict and you go easy, the student's going to like you more than they like us. But if we go less and you go harder, then the student's going to appeal that much more and, you know, fight it more at the end of the day. Does that make sense? Okay. So course preparation. So your course syllabus is probably the strongest thing that you have in your class. Once again, we do ask that you submit in your syllabus so we can see the syllabus statement. Now, I will tell you, I had a faculty member who submitted in the academic integrity form with their syllabus with a academic integrity clause in there. When we met with the student, the syllabus did not have the academic integrity clause in there. And it was on their Canvas shell. The student was showing me on the Canvas shell. The faculty member kind of realized, oh shoot, I forgot to put it in there. Kind of just slipped it in there as they submitted the reports. Let's try not to do that, avoid that as much as possible, because once again, you're holding the students accountable for academic integrity, but yet you're not doing it yourself. So make sure that syllabus has it. We do have a sample syllabus statement, which we'll provide that you can add. Just drop it in, it's a paragraph, it helps at the end of the day. But make sure you're clear in that. One of the other big things that I could be is clear in your grading policy. If you have essays or lab assignments, use rubrics. Canvas has rubrics option with it. Try to use it as much as possible. It just leaves out the grayness of it. Now it's hard to do that for like if you're doing like a special topics, conversation or argumentative paper or anything like that. I understand there are things, or maybe if it's a science experiment where you could have 3 or 4 different results or methods on how to approach it, but try to make sure that the student understands where their grade would be if they were to do one thing or the other. Anybody have a question?
I do. This is Julie. So exactly what should we add for that academic integrity statement?
I'm glad you asked. How about that?
Well, very nice.
So, that is the statement that we provide. A couple of good things on this. It kind of defines academic integrity. It tells students an example. It gives them the thing that if they were to violate this, what would happen? And it also gives them the place where they could go to view the student code of conduct and in our board policy. So it gives the 4 main parts to this any statement to ensure that the student understands it. Now it's up to the student to actually go to 4F7 and read what plagiarism is in depth, but at least you've given them a good starting point. We also have a student code of conduct syllabus statement. If you like that, I could give that to you. I don't know if I have that in this presentation, but it is also on our website. If you are one of the lucky faculty members to have an on-campus class, we do have a statement and regulations for students that do the on-campus because they have to get their temperature reads and all that stuff. So that can all be part of your syllabus. Once again, your syllabus is your contract. Try to make sure that it's in there. I always say if you have house rules, this is one that we always get at the end of the year, is if 3 tardies make an absence, if you have that rule, needs to be in your syllabus. If you don't have that rule, or you just like, yeah, if you're absent 3 times, I just verbally tell my students that, you cannot apply that to their grade or their attendance. And one more thing, attendance does not equal their grade. So especially right now in an online environment, if they're not participating or they're not there, but they're submitting in their homework, you cannot mark them down for not being engaged in the class, if you will. Okay?
Nikki, I have a question about that. I've seen
Sure.
some people say that if a student misses the final exam, then they will get an F for the whole semester. Isn't that just an attendance problem? And that should not be true.
That, to my knowledge, that should not be true. Now, there is a caveat in that. If the final exam is worth so much that they, that if a student was to not do the assignment, would fail the course, then that's fine. There are actually some biology classes that do it that way, that, you know, the whole class is like 25% of the grade, and then the final exam is 75% of the grade. Then that's fine. But if it's like you don't show up to class and you fail, then that should not be the practice. And if that's the practice, then let us know and we can help you to move things around. But yeah.
I've seen that in several syllabi in other departments, and including my own physical science, and I've seen it in the math department too. But yeah, I've heard that that was not the thing to do. Even if, you know, if they get a 0 on the final, but their points still add up to a passing grade,
And they should be able to pass, yeah.
they should be able
Now,
to pass. Yeah.
I'll double check with Billy Joe to see what her stance is on that. I know when we were under NAN, that was not allowed. Maybe Billy Joe may have changed that, but according to Title V regulations, attendance should not be in consideration. Once
Right.
again, if by not being there gives the student a 0 on the final and then they fail the course, that's a different story. Then you don't show up and you fail the class, and even if you got the 0 and you had an A, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate if you would follow up on that.
I'll follow up on that. I do know some faculty members will, if they don't show up to the final, will give an incomplete to students.
That they would what to the students?
They'll give an incomplete to the student.
No, we avoid incompletes as much as possible.
Yeah, I would too, but I do know there's some faculty that'll do that if the student doesn't show up to the final. I think that was more of the COVID situation last year when they were having some situations and stuff, but there are some faculty that'll do an incomplete and then provide them, hey, you have 1 year to make up for it.
Yeah, I think only with prior arrangement, you know.
Yeah. Make sure your classroom expectations are set. This is kind of like a slide in for a successful Zoom. Consider the space that you're in. You know, shut the door if you know people are around you. Remember, model what you expect of your students in that way. I know when I've had conduct meetings with students, if they're not in appropriate attire or an appropriate thing, I'm just like, yeah, give me a call back in 15, 20 minutes when you are in a more better environment, better background. I know I've had some interesting conversations with students having things in the background. We do say that now that because we are online, you can't require your students to be on camera. If you put it in the syllabus right at the beginning of your class, you might be able to get away with it. But once again, we don't have a lot of students that have cameras or anything like that. So just be mindful and see what the situation is with the student. If you notice a student is closing their camera a lot, let us know. Maybe there might be some situations with the student. We've come to realize that a lot of students, because their kids are at home, don't want to have other people see their students, and they may be working on an iPad or some other situation where a virtual background might not be feasible for them to have. So just keep those in mind. We do have the Renegade Hub, which is under Pam Rivers and the academic technologies. You can always, I do have a sample syllabus statement for that, and that can be plugged in. That helps students to get all those knick-knack kind of things done. before class starts. There is a Canvas shell Canvas course shell in the library with a bunch of different statements in there. I was actually just talking to Academic Technologies this morning about it. So I update those syllabus statements as they come along. So faculty members can just copy and paste it into there. I don't mind you plagiarizing me on that. Because at the end of the day, it kind of helps me out. Ensure there's enough light on you. Wi-Fi routers, make sure your phone is down, students are there. If you're in the classroom, if it's like no cell phones out, once again, make sure it's in your syllabus or make sure that you're starting your class. If you are recording, which we highly recommend not to record, but if you are going to record your things, make sure it's in your syllabus that you'll be recording lectures. And then before you hit that record button, you tell the students, I will now be recording. And if you do record, I would highly recommend that you give the option to your students to have their cameras on or off. And if you do record, please do not post those to YouTube. That could be considered a FERPA violation, because if the student has their video on and you have that out on the YouTube, other people can see students that are in your course or anything in that matter. So even if you say that, oh, it's on my private YouTube channel, not the best option. Work with Academic Technologies. They can help you place it in other platforms or Canvas to do that. All right. If you're not familiar, Zoom already creates links for it, for your Zoom videos. So you can just copy and paste that link and send it to your class if you need to do that. So it's only contained within your class. And if your students send it off to another thing, that's a different story. But if you have it, then you also have access to terminate the link and whatnot if need be. Okay. All right, scenario 4, part A. Any questions thus far? Nope, okay, hopefully I'm not boring you all to death. Scenario 4, Tamara's and Tony's papers were flagged. 3 paragraphs virtually the same. Both Tamara and Tony vociferously, and this is one of those like right-click synonym words, and vigorously denied and any copying. What do you do? Apparently we do nothing. Okay, great. Confront them with the physical evidence. Both receive the same penalty. Submit an intake form with the Turnitin report. Oh, thank you, Bon, for mentioning that. Turnitin. If you have papers or assignments, please use Turnitin. It helps a lot. They can't negotiate that. They can't say no because it's right then and there. They can see it. They have to look at it before they submit it in to make sure that it has 10% or less. If you are one of those faculty members that no matter what it is, it has to be 10% or lower on the Turnitin, make sure it's in your syllabus so students know they have to get that one less than 10%. Send them to us, report them, submit AI, yes, in writing to verify.
Hey, Nikki.
Yes.
Can you hear me? This is Andrew.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, so one thing in terms of like the percentage with Turnitin, I don't like to try to give any percentage like limitation. I mean, I tell students if it's like a really high number, if it's like 40% or more, they might want to go back and really look at their work. But one thing I've noticed is if they do their works cited pages correctly or their reference pages correctly, it really tends to include that, and that bumps the percentage up significantly. And I know there are options in Turnitin to where you can click an option to not include any reference pages or works cited in the percentage, but it's just something too, because students freak out about that. Like, oh, I'm at like 22%. I'm like, but
Yeah.
Did you do your works cited correctly? Yeah. Well, that probably accounts for a good 10 to 12 of it. yeah, I mean, I always tell them that, what they need to worry about is if they go back and they look at the Turnitin report, any text that's highlighted that is not properly cited and within quotations is what they really need to work on correcting and fixing. But I try not to put hard numbers, because then I get I get more emails if I put a hard number out there, more freaking out, anxious students. And it's usually the students that I don't have to worry about that are the ones emailing me freaking out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, so as I said, there are some faculty who do that and some that don't, so just keep that in there. So I'm seeing from the chat, you would send it to us. That's great, because this is what I would send back to you. After further investigation showed that they received help from the same SI tutor. What would you do now? Would you give the students a lower grade, or would you give them a higher grade? And of course, this is not a true scenario whatsoever. Contact the SI leader, yeah. So we found out in this one, the same student had the SI leader. The SI leader literally helped to get the two students' essays and basically copy and paste it so that they could clock in an hour and a half with the student to get the money, but not really help the student out. So yeah, so in that case, we did not hold the students accountable. We hold the SI tutor accountable in that situation. All right, so just some quick things on why students plagiarize intentionally or unintentionally. I mean, saying like a lot of times they don't really know the difference between intentionally and unintentionally. They've done it in high school. They're like, oh, I didn't know, I did it in high school, kind of things. So some prevention tips for you. Discuss academic integrity in your first class. Set the standard on a high level. We have sample academic integrity sample assignments on our website that you could use. The library has a plagiarism Canvas course that you could use. Make sure you set those parameters. And when I'm talking about also on parameters, when you're doing group assignments, make sure that you set what that tone for your submission is going to be. So if you have students that are going to be in a group together, but you're expecting each student to have their own work, make sure that it is clear. Because a lot of times students think when they go into a group, they have to produce one work and they submit it in 4 times. Make sure that they know that the Writing Center is available, that we have tutoring even in an online environment. So there, bedtime reading for you to do. Out of all the creative tips for prevention, my biggest thing is to say is like give more open answer questions or more essay type of questions. I always go by few is more, less is more. That's the phrase, less or more. See, once again, you say that statement, it should be quoted, but you never know who actually said that from the beginning. So it's there. Technologies, we kind of covered that. Next scenario. Students in a lab are required to work in pairs. Students are required to interpret their data and write their reports independently. 2 excellent students who worked together in a lab all semester submitted the same final report, but different formatting, which is worth 75% of the grade. What do you do? Any thoughts? No thoughts? All right, so I'm going to add a little caveat to it. Although you implied in class that all students must submit work individually, it is not mentioned or stated in the lab rubric or syllabus. What do you do? Send them to me, yeah. send them to us. We'll help you out on it. But more than anything, that's what I say is like, make sure it's in the syllabus or in the rubric what it is. Be clear. Because there are situations where students were like, we didn't know that we couldn't send them, send in the same copy of it. Like, it wasn't in the syllabus, it wasn't in the grading rubric. So make sure. All right, infractions. This is the definition of plagiarism, definition of cheating. What does it mean to be to by an infraction? Meaning that there's an alleged violation that has occurred and that you've sent that to us. To be simple, we have a no tolerance policy, zero tolerance on academic integrity. We, as we say, we go to the highest level, but we also make it into a learning opportunity for the student for it. With that, they contact our office and it's documented. We determine the suggestive language for the faculty member. We do not remove the student from your course if they've been plagiarized or anything like that. Once again, it's a learning opportunity. So what we'll do is we'll get the intake form, we'll meet with the student, we'll see where they are. We try to do this before you determine the grade for the student so that you have some type of information back from us. We talk with the student and then we process it. For most of our sanctions that we have for academic integrity is that they have to write some type of an apology letter. They meet with the writing center if it's more of a writing opportunity, and then they do some type of a community service work. Even in an online environment, we've been finding online community service programs that they can attempt to do. Okay, that's what we're talking. 5 hours, other sanctions as determined for it. Right, our last scenario, Dave and Joan are collaborated on their coursework as they are lab partners. The faculty notices that Dave's report is very similar to hers. What do? Is this plagiarism? I'm guessing most of you are like shaking your head. Yeah, no, it's not plagiarism. Going to throw in the caveat. Faculty talks to Dave, who reports, prior to submission of the final paper, Joan struggles with the concepts and also gets ill and is bedridden for a day. Dave reported that he gave her his paper to consult as there has never been a problem in the past. Joan is a good friend. What do? So a lot of this time, I'll be honest, sometimes gender bias happens, that if it's two papers of two students of the same paper, we tend to say it's like, oh, the male's the copying culprit here. We've been noticing it's actually more the opposite way, back and forth, depending on power dynamics there. But as Julia mentioned, sharing a paper is a problem. Once again, sharing a paper will always happen in your class. So once again, talk to your students about that. Okay, and continuous improvement. And there's your reference page. That's it. With 3 minutes to spare. Any questions, moans, groans, or concerns? Hopefully I didn't bore you all.
Nikki?
Uh-huh.
I apologize for being late. Did you mention how international students did not grow up with the same plagiarism rules?
I did not. If you'd like to talk about that, that'd be great.
Sure. International students did not get raised with the same plagiarism rules that we did. And I'm sure Nikki's had this conversation with international students too, to where they're literally not understanding why they're in our office. So especially with the real writing heavy classes, just make sure to really reiterate that. And personally, I would give a little bit of grace there. Also, previously incarcerated students are, it's not so much a stereotype, but really a lot of them are really good writers. And you might think, okay, their speech patterns don't line up with their writing skills. I think they're cheating. A good chance is they're not. They are that good. We've come across that pretty often. Those are, yeah, probably the two big ones for me are the international students and the previously incarcerated students. And one more thing, I think a few of you have done this. When you report them, if you say, hey, I don't want any punishment for them, I've already done this, but I just want them to get a warning, and we have that on record. We can do that as well if you would like, but just let us know. That's it, Nikki.
Thanks, Bob. Yep. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, that is very important, especially if you're teaching in the prisons.
And I have something to say. Is it true, Nikki, that okay, you said at the first problem, it's a learning experience, but their name goes down on a list and they are tracked. So if they get caught cheating again, the consequences are higher. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we use a system called Maxient. It's our case management system. So when students are reported to us, it goes into our database. And so when we get that student again for a similar situation, we can see who has talked with them or what has happened for it. Thanks, Kurt. No problem.
Okay, and then it goes on their BC record too, correct?
It does not go on any BC record. No conduct goes on the transcript or anything in that matter. The only thing is sometimes students, when they're transferring to some institutions, they have to get my signature that they've not had any academic integrity issues or any conduct issues, and that's when we can pull it up to see if that student is there. That's also, I always recommend faculty members that if you want to know if your student has plagiarized before, just let us know and we'll let you know. Yeah, they've been caught 2-3 other times or whatever it is. We could tell you also like what the situation was of the plagiarism case.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Okay, hold on, Nikki. I got another one.
Huh?
Even though this is an academic integrity issue we're talking about, one of the things too, I think it'd be more a Nikki issue, is if you have constantly disruptive students or they're sending you ugly emails or something like that, absolutely report it, please. If they're doing it to you, they're doing it to others as well.
And that's
the
where
district will actually pay for what's that called when somebody can't be around you?
Restraining orders.
A restraining order, if it's from a student, so yeah, make sure you do that. That's definitely a safety issue and will absolutely not be tolerated. And for Nikki, if he feels campus safety needs to get involved, then that'll happen as well.
Yeah. It doesn't happen often, so I don't want people getting scared, but we as I said, we never know what student's going to come into our Zoom. So just be mindful in that. As Paul was saying, when you do, the reason why I do like to get the FYIs from the faculty as far as like, hey, I'm not going to fill out the academic integrity form, but I just wanted to give you a FYI, is because then we keep those and we track those as well. So the student can't ever come back saying, hey, I was never told about academic integrity. Well, no, it looks like this faculty member talked to you, this faculty member talked to you, this faculty member talked to you. Now it's become an issue. Also, I always say 3 makes a pattern. So if I see the student, 3 faculty members are just sending me an FYI on a student plagiarism, that's one thing. As the nexus, I'll look into that and say, oh no, well now we're going to call this student in to talk to them to make sure they understand what it is. Yeah, Starfish is a good way to do that. In Starfish, there is a thing for plagiarism. It literally says, we'll send to Nikki Damania. So you should be able to do that. Cool. Anything else? I believe we're over on time, so I don't want to hold anybody. No? All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming in. Welcome back to 2021. Have a great semester. Let us know, let Paul or I know if we can help you in any way. Bye, y'all. Don't forget to sign the sheet and fill out the feedback form. I don't know where that feedback form is, but
Yes, I'll put in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yay, we're
Put us on the spot.
Yeah. Yay.
I'm going to mute myself.
Oh, that's right, because I'm going to be doing